Travis Wayne Goodsell. I think I'm finally finishing up the news. Looks like I'm going to go into Sunday. The church is causing lots of confusion among Mormons, as the church has been pushing religious freedom for a couple of years now, along with fundamentalist Christians. So, yay, fun group to pair up with. Perfect match. And they've been trying to change the Constitution that already guarantees religious freedom, so that the church and all churches can discriminate against whoever they want to. And so the church got their way with the Supreme Court, where BYU can now discriminate. So if the church disapproves of your lifestyle, you don't go. So if you're not paying a full tithing, you don't go. I don't think you go anyway. I think that's a requirement. So it's just like, why do other universities here in the United States give allowance for the credentials or credit from BYU? It's beyond me. Canada didn't recognize any of my Rick's College credits. They knew very well that private religious schools do not teach correctly. And so I found out a big difference in teaching by going to the university in Canada. But the church is pushing religious freedom to take away agency. Because as a church, if you're going to be involved in education and business and all these other areas, and you're going to want to keep it to everybody must conform to the highest degree of the celestial kingdom, or we're going to discriminate against you, and you become a monopoly, as in the state of Utah, what you're doing is committing violations of other people's rights to life, liberty, and property. The Supreme Court made a huge mistake in their judgment as a result. They already have religious freedom. And so now they're giving religions the freedom to force compliance to others who are not of their religion, as well as those within the religion who may be at various levels of activity. That's what they call it in the church. And so we're headed for major disaster. Because, a single mother, you're evil. You don't have a husband to raise your kids. We need to bring back our adoption agency that we canceled because they were closing in on human trafficking. So this is what the church wants to go back to, and what they bailed from. They bailed from the Boy Scouts because they sent boys to the slaughter with the scout leaders they sent to rape them. And so they had their adoption agencies where they were scaring Mormon girls. Hey, you're a sinner now. You've got to give up your baby for adoption to be raised in good Mormon households with a mother and a father. You're a sinful, evil woman now. Use chewing gum. as has been used in classrooms in the Mormon Church. And this is where the church wants to go. Polygamy. I've been warning you of this. The change Nelson made in the temple. Everybody was all excited. Oh, yay, they're finally giving women more freedoms and liberties and powers. No, you missed the law of chastity. What is the law of God regarding marriage for the Mormon Church? Since Brigham Young, the year before he died, when he put it in his Doctrine and Covenants. That's right, section 132, 10 virgins, polygamy. And everybody missed it. Except for my ex. I was surprised she knew that. She caught that. But, because she usually will claim a quote from Scripture, and I'm like, no, it's not in Scripture. You made it up. No, it's there. I know. Well, let me use my computer program. It's not there. Sorry. No, you got to use the real printed Scriptures. Hilarious, but yeah, she caught the law of chastity, and so yeah, I went over it with her, and from the text of it, they're purposely setting up for all sorts of human rights violations in the church, claiming religious freedom, human trafficking, sex slave with polygamy, because that's what it is, forcing women to marry old, wrinkly, fat, bald, not me, because I'm not a leader. But, I mean, just like Warren Jeffs, man, they didn't go after him for polygamy, or the marriages to 14-year-old girls. They went after them for SNAP fraud violations, and then they threw in, oh wow, here you got a photo of being married to a 14-year-old girl and you're kissing her. Busted. But the church is doing a lot worse. And this is a huge danger. I did the video, religious warning, religious freedom danger, or whatever I titled it. And this is why. It's because, see, they're talking about on their website for 3rd of July, which was 8 days ago, they had an online conference, roundtable, I guess they're calling it, with Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom. And of course, they only put in the stuff they wanted Mormons to find out about. Actual video, doesn't show how long it is, but they're saying that, oh, this coronavirus, it's taking away our religious freedom to worship. And I already know the church leaders are evil. They got Lucifer's sign above the doors of the Salt Lake Temple. And so I now know, having been born and raised in the church, that the church ain't true. I spent my time focusing on Joseph Smith, and got distracted away from Brigham Young and the current church. And so, Joseph Smith, good guy. Wish we had his church. Wish we had his organization. Because we'd be stepping up and saying, hey, America, we're taking it back and we're restoring the Constitution. No more abuse from positions of authority. That's what I was raised to believe, because I was studying Joseph. But just unbelievable. And then Uchtdorf is now the spokesperson for the mask wearing now. Cover your face, not your hearts. But this is where the religious freedom thing came in, is Mormons were stepping up and saying, hey, we want our religious freedom to gather at church. This is denying our right to worship in a group at church. Never mind what the Book of Mormon said on that with the Zoramites. Poor Zoramites kicked out of their synagogue that they built, and they tell Alma and Almelech, no, what do? We can't worship our God. And so he teaches them about the true worship of God, which is getting revelation and fulfilling it. And everybody misses it because they only go to Moroni chapter 10, verse 4 and 5, and then re-edit it in oral tradition. So that if a Mormon were to go back into Moroni 10, 4 and 5 and memorize it as, seminary, institute, mission, has scripture masteries to memorize, they don't catch the grammatical errors they've made with their oral tradition. And so you don't need a church. You don't need to gather. I've gone over this, but YouTube is blocking me because the church is paying them to block me. And with religious freedom, they're now coming out and saying, hey, we need our right to not wear masks. Or want to worship at church, to gather together. We don't want to wear these masks. They're taking away our liberty. They're taking away our rights to religion. We don't want them. And so Bednar comes out with a little video conference to the law school at BYU and says coronavirus is taking away our agency to gather at church. Coronavirus, a virus, taking away our agency, as if we can sue a virus. I mean, that was the most horrendous thing an apostle, acclaimed prophet of God, could say. As if God is only in charge of the good weather and Lucifer is in charge of the bad weather and all of the viruses and diseases and illnesses that come with the bad weather and the bad climate and the jungles that are not domesticated and the animals that are not domesticated. It's sickening. I'm looking back in retrospect, having been born and raised in the church, looking forward to hearing the words of the prophets, and then over time they're starting to say more and more things that are conflicting with other prophets, and then they start saying things that do not match scripture, and then I put all the pieces together, and what a nightmare. As Nelson, a medical doctor, refused to shut down the church, as the health professionals, the medical professionals, were all saying before it became an issue in the United States. They warned us, shut everything down, send everybody home. We need to control this, to let it pass over. And Nelson knows about that. He's a medical doctor, trained. He didn't. And so Bednar is now coming out and saying the coronavirus is taking away our agency? Nelson took away your agency if there's anybody to blame. Governor Herbert took away your agency if there's anybody to blame. The executive of the United States of America took away your agency if there's anyone to blame. Nelson, Herbert, and the executive of the nation had us open too early because we closed too soon, too late, sorry. We closed too late, we opened too early, we downgraded too soon, and it's out of control now. And now people are saying, we don't like these consequences. It's taking away our agency. We demand that we get to do what we wanted to do before all of this without the consequences. The dumbest of people. And so now, the church, as I saw on the news this morning, as ABC 4 News Utah was earlier this morning, trying to catch up for several days. They're now saying, hey, all Mormons must now wear masks here in Utah. They're still going to gather at church, but they're doing the minimum. It's too late. We got to stay home. The medical professionals are trying to tell us we need to shut down. You need to stay home. But the leaders of the church and the government want money. They want to maintain the slave economy that they've had established in America. They don't want to lose that. And yet they're going to. Because, again, it's out of their control. They didn't do what they were supposed to do in the beginning. And now the consequences are going to be complete destruction of America. And that's exactly what they wanted. Nelson knows it. He can't claim ignorance. Oh, I had no idea this was going to happen. He knows. Governor Herbert knows. He was told by his health professionals here in Utah what to do. He chose to ignore them, just like a certain national executive. And so now Mormons who are demanding not to wear a mask were shot down in flames. Well, I say today, but I guess it was a couple of days ago. That they now have to wear a mask. It's an order from a 70. Because Bednar already came out and said the coronavirus is taking away our agency. Christofferson, I think, also. And Nelson. Oh, we're going to have two fasts because the first one didn't work. We're going to cure this coronavirus with a fast. Well, why didn't he have another one? For each month, it didn't get cured. Why aren't they holding a fast? And the thing is, not only do we not need church to worship, we have the internet. We have groups on Facebook, YouTube. The church has a website that they can hold live performances. Is the church completely inept from holding church services every Sunday online? I mean, all you need to do is have a sacrament meeting, have prophets or religious leaders give talks, and then you can have the sacrament where the video will say pause so that you can have the sacrament in your home and resume when you're finished. Because you don't need church for the sacrament. I did that video from the beginning. But nope, the church had to say, "I'll counsel with your bishop and stake president as to how to proceed with sacrament on Sundays during this staying home time." If you've got a priest of the Aaronic priesthood, that's all you need. He has authority. He doesn't need it just at church. But that's the tradition in Mormonism. We can only exercise our female priesthood in the temple. We can only exercise the sacrament priesthood at church, or unless the bishop gives us special permission to go to a member's home. No! It's like marriage. Melchizedek priesthood allows all of us who are Melchizedek priesthood holders to marry in accordance with the laws of the land. I have my certificate as a Melchizedek priesthood holder. That's all that's needed for the state and for the federal government. I could marry somebody, and it would be according to the laws of the land. It would not be according to the church, which requires a sealer in the temple. You see how restrictive they are? They demand you must have a building, you must have permission. That's Lucifer's plan of happiness, because we as mortals are incapable of making the right choices, and so our agency has to be taken away in order to save us in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. And so, yeah, Mormons were shot down in flames. But it was a 70. And so there's still going to be Mormons saying, "Oh, it's not the prophet. It's not a prophet. So I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do whatever I want. Because it's just a 70. Even though he said, I'm under direction of the president of the church. Doesn't matter. They've already decided this virus, wearing a mask, is taking away our agency. And they don't look to the origins of why we are at this point. For the church, it was Nelson, as a medical doctor, failing to say, Mormons, we're shutting everything down. As a medical doctor, a man of science, I know the dangers of viruses. I want you guys safe. Communicate with your bishops if you need food storage. We have built dozens more food storage things in each state around the world, and we're prepared because we have a storage system all set up for this rainy day. As we chose not to save trillions of dollars and hoard it, but chose instead for the welfare of Zion. Nope, didn't do that at all, did he? the church could have come out on top, saving the world. Everybody would have said, oh my God, the church is awesome. I want to belong to that church. I want to know more about what they preach because they care for human life. Instead, nope, they're murdering people. They don't care for human life. And that's what I'm having to deal with in the courts. As the federal officers, the judicial and the clerical officers are screwing up my case because they know I won. I shocked them when I pointed out the symbol of Lucifer. And so the judge finally figured out, hey, why don't I just lie? Claimed that he never said and sent the filing that I ordered him to, even though he put it in the filing that I ordered him to, stating that it is the filing she ordered. It's just unbelievable, the corruption, the hatred of human life, and the contradictions that cause Mormons to go, wait a minute, I thought you were for religious freedom. Why are you making us wear masks? See, when polygamy was stopped, Mormons were saying, hey, what are you doing? We're the Church of God. Don't give in to the federal government. You guys lost your authority, Wilford Woodruff. We're going to start our own religion as Melchizedek priesthood holders, and we're going to continue polygamy and blood atonement and snap fraud violations when they get invented. I mean, this is a crisis. And the church leaders are to blame. They did not lead by example. And they're now blaming Mormons. They're not taking accountability for what they did. They're not saying, we're sorry, we should have closed earlier. As a medical doctor, I knew better. No, they'll never admit that. I'm just so sad. Human life just dying, and they just don't care. Today, 9 more people were reported dead. 9. It just keeps going up and up. Steady increase, because Herbert is doing the best he can to control the numbers and the testing and all that, but it's just going to get worse. Face masks are only part of the equation. It was necessary in the beginning, before it broke out, while we were staying home, so that when we had to go to the grocery store, we would wear it in the grocery store. And then we go right back home. That's all we had to do. That's all the world had to do. And now America has banned from the European Union. New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut automatically quarantine anybody from Utah. And if you test positive, you're going to be stuck longer. And if you can't test negative 3 times, you're going to be stuck longer. Utah is the worst example in the world when they wanted to be the best. And isn't there something about that, about Lucifer? Of course there is, that's why I brought it up. So unlike my ex, I know exactly where to look. I don't even have to use my computer program for it. You know, I could do the Book of Mormon version or the Isaiah version. Verse 13, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. That's what the church is doing. They're trying to aspire to the honors of men. And the news showed that the church yet again received honors from a government. They got their honors from men during a time where they have failed their own members, their own Mormons. We're not members. We're chattel. They use us to commit tax fraud, insurance fraud, property fraud, which usually is involving insurance. But property fraud also involves saying, hey, you know, we're 16 million strong. We would like to obtain property in your area. And the actual active number is around 3 million. Less now. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Nelson, O prophets of God? Thou hast been brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Travis, who sees thee, narrowly looks upon thee, and considers thee, saying, is this the man that made the Mormons to tremble, that did shake the kingdoms with their extortion, that made the world as a desert, and destroyed the cities thereof, and opened not the house of his prisoners? Thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with the sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. The church lost. I won my lawsuit. The judge purposely lied in her recommendation. But they all know I won. That's why they cheat. That's why they lie. That's why they commit crimes, federal crimes, to protect the church at all cost, rather than the victim. The church is destroyed spiritually, and it's just a matter of time now before it's destroyed physically.